All right, so I've got Mike James back on here, and we had him on a couple months ago, for the Joe Burrow Jalen Hurts debate, which I still feel strongly that I won. Um, but he's on because his Eagles just won the Super Bowl, and I will say this: I had the Eagles at 4 on my ranking several times, and so I was wrong, and I can admit when I was wrong, and now I've got Mike James on here to tell me why I was wrong. So the floor is yours, brother. Lay it all on me.
So really, let's just go. The simple facts. Like you said, you're wrong, and I've been telling you this since July. I believe we met what June, July, whenever it was. I've been telling you from the start that with the addition of Vic Fangio, Saquon Barkley, which all the analysts were saying was a misuse of resources by Howie Roseman, all this and that. Not you necessarily. I remember you specifically saying that it was a big pickup.
I like Saquon. I thought it was a good deal. I didn't think it'd be this, but
Yeah, everyone. I do believe you were one of the ones you were like, I don't know, Jason Kelsey's not there anymore. I don't know how good that O line is going to be. Which in your defense is a fair ish, like thing to be worried about. But at the same time, Jason Kelsey handpicked Cam Jurgens to replace him, so I wasn't too worried. That defense though, Brian. Let's talk about the defense. Number
yes,
one defense. But the craziest thing about having the number one defense, two rookie starters, you got second year player Jalen Carter, who's now shown best D tackle in the NFL. You got Nolan Smith, who basically just his first year playing. You got old man Graham. You got old man Darius Slay. You had Zach Bond, who even I couldn't see come in. And it's just nice to sit here and come on here and say that you were wrong. Now, with all that being said, the main thing that I want to come on here and talk to you about what you were wrong about, just like our last debate, is the quarterback, Jalen Hurts.
I don't think I was wrong about him still, but go on.
And that's exactly what I prepared for. Jalen Hurts now to this point, undoubtedly top three quarterback in the NFL. And here's one of the biggest things that I want to point out, because you are one of the biggest advocates of playoffs matters more than anything else. Regular season, cool, whatever. And Jalen Hurts is literally the epitome of that. Saquon Barkley obviously went nuts regular season, and I believe the quote was, "Just because we don't doesn't mean we can't." Because you always had everyone every week we would come in, like, oh, Jalen didn't do this, Jalen didn't do that. He didn't need to. So let's get in. Let's get into this a little bit,
Well,
and
there's
because
your key right there. He didn't need to, but go on,
he
go
didn't
on.
need to, but like I said, just because we don't doesn't mean we can't. Because I just want you to clarify for all the people. You're a big Josh Allen guy,
Yes.
and you think that Josh Allen's better than Jalen Hurts, correct?
Oh yeah, it's not even a conversation.
Wrong. So let's go here. For one, just clear the way. Yeah, Josh Allen won MVP, but like you said, you don't really care about that. Correct.
No, true.
Exactly. So up to this point, Jalen Hurts now has two NFC championships to Josh Allen zero. Yep, true.
That's true. That's true.
Exactly. Yeah, people always love to say like, oh, Josh, he almost beat Mahomes 13 seconds back. All right, so it's like we want to go back to the past. Let's go last year when Jalen beat Josh when they went head to head in that overtime game. Jalen 5 touchdowns, Josh 4 touchdowns. This year in the playoffs versus the Chiefs defense, Josh Allen 22 of 34, 237 yards, 2 touchdowns, 11 carries, 39 yards, 104 quarterback rating. Jalen Hurts in the Super Bowl versus that exact same Chiefs defense. 17 to 22, 221 yards, 2 touchdowns, interception, 11 carries, 72 yards, 1 touchdown, 119 quarterback rating. Also, I do want to note when I look at these numbers, I see what is this? 12 less passes from Hurts and only 16 less yards passing. And we all remember that first drive, the bomb to AJ, and the rest wanted to take it away.
That was a catch. That was
Yeah, yeah,
there's no penalty. That was
yeah.
ridiculous.
They call OPI. So how can we sit here every year, see somebody who rises to the top, no matter what the circumstances are, and wins these football games, and not consider him one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, top 3 quarterbacks? He Jalen Hurts is the first quarterback to make it back to a Super Bowl after losing his first since John Elway. That is 30 years since that has happened. Jalen Hurts is the first quarterback to win a Super Bowl matchup ever in history. Eli Manning versus Brady. I know you're a big Brady guy.
Mm-hmm.
Eli won both of those. Troy Aikman versus Jim Kelly. Troy Aikman won both of those. Terry Bradshaw versus Roger Staubach. Won both of those. So we have all these people who praise, and Mahomes is the number one quarterback in the NFL. We have all these people who come on here and praise Mahomes, and then we have a guy who has outplayed him on the highest level, not one time, but 2 times. And we don't sit here and come on here and say that he's the best quarterback, or at least one of the best quarterbacks. I don't know. That's just insane to me.
Well, I'm gonna say this. There's and it's the same thing that I say for conferences and college football. There's curves for different teams
Mm-hmm.
because there's different situations. You understand one thing about Jalen Hurts, and I hate conversations like this because I don't want to diminish him at all.
Right.
He did like he came out first drive Sunday afternoon, and it was one of those days where you just saw first pass that pass to AJ Brown, which was a catch. It was just spot on. Like he had a day, and he was on. You could tell he was on. He had a great game against Washington as well. The LA one was weird. There was weather there, both sides. That was I can't.
Still great though.
And the Green Bay one was the first game back. So I can't hold that too much against him. Not like I'm going to hold anything against him. But there is one thing that I'm going to say here about Jalen Hurts is that there's a curve, because you have hands down the best offensive line I may have ever seen. I'm not going to lie. Like that offensive line is unreal. You have Saquon Barkley in the backfields. You've got AJ Brown, Devontae Smith. It is a hell of a receiving core. Dallas Goedert blocking and catching for you. Like it is an absolute machine that he's plugged into. But again, it's like a young Tom Brady scenario where that defense was there to a defense was like a buoy for him all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Kept him in games. He just had to be himself and deliver, make the right passes at the right times, and he did, to his credit. And Jalen Hurts did his credit. But there's something to be said about somebody when they get later into their career, and this may happen for Jalen Hurts at some point. This was Josh Allen faced it for the first time in his career this year, where it's truly all you, and you have to grit it out. You have to execute it out. You have to manipulate the line of scrimmage yourself and be more prepared and one step ahead of every team that you play, despite who's on your team. And that's what Tom Brady had to do later in his career.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, when you're out there throwing to Chris Hogan and Danny Amendola and Julian Edelman, and I love those guys. We didn't have Randy Moss on his team, and he didn't have Deion Branch. Those guys were long gone, so it was up to him at that point to elevate that team and grit them to the next level. Jalen Hurts, his first year was like that, 9-8. But ever since then, the circumstances, I'll be honest, they've been pretty posh. But there will come a point where naturally it's a salary cap league. You're not going to be able to keep all the guys that are just on this team on the same team. So you have to let some guys walk. And so then that's that point where we're going to find out where Jalen Hurts has a second gear or not.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I can't put him in the same conversation with a Josh Allen, with a Patrick Mahomes, with a Joe Burrow just yet. It's because those guys have had to do that, and they have. Joe Burrow didn't have a defense this year, and he had to will them. And Josh Allen didn't have much offensively this year. I mean, they had they were good, not great. They weren't special. They have good players on. Do you have James Cook? Yeah, Dalton Kincaid. I like those guys, but it's not AJ Brown or Saquon Barkley.
And here's the thing. Here's the defense that I have to that, because we say that, but in those same breath, okay, yeah, Joe Burrow did not have a defense, but at the same time, Joe Burrow was playing a fourth place schedule. This is something we talked about, a fourth place schedule. He did not. And last time I checked, they went head to head this year, Jalen versus Joe. We talked about it last episode. Jalen outplayed Joe. You say Josh Allen, weapons, blah blah blah. In what world is James Cook not a weapon? In what world is Amari Cooper not a weapon? In what world is Dawson Knox not a weapon? And truth be told, the Bills have probably anywhere two. I feel like when it comes to O-lines, obviously I'm biased, so I'm going to say we have the best. But when it comes to Bills, the Chiefs, the Lions, those are some of the top 5 O-lines in the entire NFL. Josh Allen does have one of the best O-lines in the NFL. And then it just goes back to my same point. They played the same teams. James Cook was averaging 6.5 yards a carry versus that Chiefs defense. Saquon Barkley, obviously, no discredit to Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley is him. He averaged 2.3 yards a carry versus that same Chiefs defense. So Josh Allen was getting more help from the backfield, but yet we sit here and we discredit Jalen Hurts for what he has around him, but Josh has similar things working for him in that same aspect. Also, another thing I want to know, we talk about the weapons. Kurt Warner is somebody who I want to bring up. Kurt Warner is a Hall of Fame quarterback. True?
Yes.
He won a Super Bowl with the greatest show on turf, Marshall Faulk, Torrey Holt, Isaac Bruce.
Who your team actually reminds me a lot of that, but go on.
Exactly. But why do we sit here and discredit Jalen Hurts, but then credit Kurt Warner for it?
So, okay, I want to say this because I want to build off of what you're saying, because I actually really agree with you on this. One thing I'm going to go back to the Josh Allen thing, but then I'm going to support you with what you just said. Mm-hmm. Josh Allen, you're right. Josh Allen does have weapons. He has machetes. Jalen Hurts has machine guns. That's the difference there. I want to say that. So that was a banger of a line, but I'm going to say this about your Kurt Warner Jalen Hurts comparison, because it is time to stop discrediting Jalen Hurts, and I'm completely on board with that. The guy is on the mountaintop. You can't say that about Josh Allen. You can't say that about Joe Burrow. You can't say that about Jared Goff. You can't say that about Lamar Jackson. They've never been there.
Nope.
And so you have a point when you say that. And I think there's an argument to say that Jalen Hurts actually looked better and more versatile than Kurt Warner did in those games. I think Jalen Hurts has a lot more longevity as a player. I think that he has a more diversified skill set than Kurt Warner. His ability to extend plays, his football IQ, his ability to make reads, his leadership. I mean, you can't underestimate any of that about Jalen Hurts. I mean, he's next level when it comes to that. The way he's able to communicate with his guys. I really saw him. I think that 2023 really tested Jalen Hurts' fabric. Like, he had a great 2022. Last year was a time where people had questions about like his cadence, his presence on the sideline. Mm-hmm. Him having to be a little bit more vocal, a little bit more involved. And I think you saw him listen to that, and I think you saw a different version of him this year. But that's what great people, that's what highly performing people do.
Exactly.
Is they adapt. And Jalen Hurts is a highly performing individual.
Exactly.
Who is he is most definitely in the top 5. I agree with you at this point, because you can't sit here and tell me that you're going to put Jared Goff above him now.
No. Right?
You can't sit here and tell me you're going to put Dak above him now. Absolutely not. There's just, and I love Matt Stafford. I don't know if you can put him above him now. Justin Herbert, get the hell out of here. Nah, not even close. He can't perform in playoff. He has not shown any signs that he can perform in a playoff game. So you can't even have Herbert and Hurts in the same conversation. It's not an argument. Hurts is better. Where Hurts is at right now is there's guys in this league who are high performers and who have done it with less at this point and have had different iterations of teams. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes is a different stratosphere. I know Hurts beat him head to head, but it's 3 Super Bowls. I mean, that's a different level. But Lamar Jackson, 2 MVPs, but even then, Jalen Hurts doesn't have an MVP, but there's a Super Bowl there now that Lamar Jackson doesn't have.
Yeah, exactly.
And so now, I'm at the point. Do you put him at 4? Do you put him at 3? I can't. I will not listen to the argument of Jalen Hurts being above Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes, but I think that there's a little more leverage now with Joe Burrow. I think there's a really plausible argument against Lamar Jackson, but the top 2, Jalen Hurts just has the story still unfolding. He has more to face in his career. And it's not to say that he's better or worse than Josh Allen or Mahomes. I just think that there's certain things that he has to face in certain situations that he has to encounter to be in the same conversation as those 2 guys. Because there's things that they've done that he hasn't yet, but in situations that they've faced and overcame that I haven't seen Jalen Hurts get faced with just yet. But he has a Super Bowl ring now, and he played great at the biggest stage. So he's in a much different category than he was a few days ago. Absolutely. Especially after this whole collective playoff run, he was great.
Yeah. And I by no means do I want to turn it to a Josh Allen versus Jalen Hurts debate.
Yeah.
But then I can't sit here and let you also say that he hasn't done things that the other guys haven't, because last year we know how terrible that Eagles defense was. It was abysmal.
Yeah.
And not only did they beat Josh Allen head to head, but he was still able to make the playoffs on a first place schedule with that bad of a defense. So it's like okay, we say like the main thing this video, I want to come on here and tell you were wrong. Yes, obviously I had the Eagles win the Super Bowl all the way back then just because I knew
you did, and I was right. I was wrong.
But the main thing that I feel like where you were wrong about the most comes at the quarterback position, which is why we had the initial debate and which is why we're still here today. So it's like, okay, you say Josh Allen hasn't done, like, he's thrown for more yards in a year. Cool. But at the end of the day, which is one of the biggest things that you're always an advocate for, is what happens when the lights are the brightest, what happens when it matters the most, who rises to the occasion time and time after again, and who doesn't. Josh Allen has not. I'm sorry. Joe Burrow has not. Lamar has not. And then at that point, you can't. There's really no other quarterbacks in the equation to compare. So all I'm saying is, when you look at everything, I just don't understand how you can.
Well, I see your angle with that.
Yeah.
I see your point with that. I think it's plausible. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you're wrong, honestly. I think you have a really good point. I don't think you're insane for having Jalen Hurts at number 2, especially as an Eagles fan. I mean,
I'm at 3.
If I were you, I'm at 3.
Yeah, I'm at 3.
Who you have at 2?
I got Lamar at 2, which I know is a little controversial for you.
Well, I love the guy, but
And this is and here's another point I want to make for that is, like I said, whenever we need you the most. This season, whenever it came down to it, Lamar, it was, hey, Lamar, we need you to go score this touchdown. When is it, like, to give us a chance to win the game? Lamar went and did that. We gave Josh Allen the ball with 3 minutes and 33 seconds left versus Mahomes, and he went 4-0.
That's fair. I also don't think it was completely his fault. I think that
play call was terrible.
I think the play again, and it's and I don't want to talk much about the Bills and the Ravens,
right?
But I think that both guys face similar battles with play calling and coaching too. That is one thing where Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, they face the same uphill battle. And especially this year, until this year, and Lamar Jackson admitted it. He got the yips. He got anxious a lot going into these games. He got really keyed up and didn't perform the way he usually does. I didn't see that this year. In both the Steelers and the Bills games, he did what he needed to do. To execute. I think this year is great for Lamar Jackson to build off of. Play calling is one of my biggest concerns right now, and the toughness of Baltimore's defense. Play calling has always been a concern for me with Buffalo. Yeah. Play calling is not a concern for me anymore with the Eagles, and that's something that I want to credit y'all for. Is Nick Sirianni? He was somebody I was very critical of going into this season.
Right.
And I think a lot of us had plausible claims to why we were critical of him going into the end of the season. But again, like smart people do, he adapted. He got better. He learned from his mistakes. He evolved as a head coach. I think you had a much quieter, more focused, more prepared version of Nick Sirianni this year. That's why this time around, they not only beat but clobbered the Chiefs when they lost 2 years ago. I think it was just a very changed team. I think it was a more mature team this year than you had back in 2022. They acted like they not only had been there, but they had mastered that stage before. There was no Philly amazed me on Sunday because there was no hesitation. There's no second guessing. A lot of times you get a team going up against a team like the Chiefs. I mean, the Niners faced them twice, and twice it was got in their heads late in the game, let the Chiefs right back in and win. Philly did that the first time. This time they acted like they belonged there, and they acted like they had the confidence that they were the better team.
Exactly.
On the fields. And that's all mentality. We all know Philly is one of the best cultures
easily
in the NFL, as far as locker room, as far as organization and internal dynamic goes. One of the best staffs from top to bottom, from strength and conditioning to nutrition to scouting to coaching. Everything in the organization is elite, and it's one of the few teams in the NFL that have true grit left. I mean, every single Philly practice is hard as hell. You don't see that in some places. I'm not going to name names.
No.
But there's places where you have cell phone breaks in practice still. It's not a thing in Philly. Yeah. It's a blue collar lunch pail to work team. And I said it earlier in the video. I'm going to admit it again. There were most times this year, I had Philly at number 4 in the NFL. That's ridiculous. Somebody who studies this game as much as me should have never had Philly at number 4. That was dumb. I'm not going to lie. That was very dumb because Philly is clearly better than all of these teams in the NFL right now. Now as we see, Chiefs included. No. I had Detroit as my hands down NFC favorite. I had them winning it all. And I was wrong because unlike Jalen Hurts, Jared Goff, when the pressure was high and the environment was rowdy, and Ford Field, he got the yips, made bad decisions, threw bad picks, and lost to a team that they should have beat by multiple possessions. And Field showed that the following week. It's all mentality, and I also want to say this too. Philly reminded me a lot of Ohio State this year, to where they looked inconsistent in the regular season. That's why you heard people say, I like this, but I need to see more of this. I heard people say that about Ohio State all the time this year, too. Yeah. Once that calendar turns, there's a different team, and they just clobbered everybody. But that's mentality, and it just goes to show that you can win 14 games, but it doesn't really matter until you get into the new year, and you get into January and February. Minnesota won 14 games this year, didn't do shit in the playoffs.
No.
Y'all won a lot of games, but you peaked when it mattered the most. And that's what it takes to win a championship, really.
And that's another thing that I want to keep in mind because, like I said, obviously you were wrong about the season. I'm never going to let you hear the end of it. I'm
Yeah,
sorry. That's the way it has to
I
be.
was wrong. I had the
But
Cowboys win the division. What the?
here's the great thing about this is that pretty much, besides like a few pieces here and there, everybody's paid up. Jalen's paid, Devontae's paid, Saquon's paid, AJ Brown is paid and extended. Mailata, Lane Johnson probably only has one more year in him. Jurgens is still on his rookie deal. Landon Dickerson paid and extended. Uh, Rookie deal for Quinion, rookie deal for Cooper DeJean. CJ Gardner Johnson's paid. I mean, outside of, guys like Milton Williams, Josh Sweat, and Zach Bond, who honestly I think really should have won DPOY. But that's neither here nor there. He's going to get a blank check from Howie this offseason, I'm sure. So we are since you didn't listen to me this time, I want you to remember this now. We very well could be on the verge of a new dynasty in the NFL.
I was just gonna say that. I mean, you're from Oklahoma. You've seen tornadoes before. You ever see two tornadoes off in the distance at the same time?
Yep.
That's what this is. KC and Philly.
Yep.
It's absolutely terrifying. I mean, if you're one of these teams on the outside looking in, like Buffalo, like Detroit, like Baltimore, that's using all of your resources every year to get back here and to compete to get to the promised land.
Mm-hmm.
This Super Bowl was very bad news. Very bad news. Because you now not only have to worry about KC, you've got to worry about Philly as well.
Absolutely.
Because because they're the same way too. And what's the cheat code? Front office.
Absolutely.
They too have one of the best GMs in the NFL, and Brett Veach.
Yeah, easily.
They have everybody pay. Everybody they need is paid right now.
Yep.
They've got. I think Andy Reid's a couple more years in him. Patrick Mahomes is in his athletic prime. They have one of the best coaching staffs in the NFL. I think you're actually in a predicament where, for the first time in NFL history, you may be getting like a Golden State Warriors Cavs thing. Where it's Chiefs Eagles. So if you hated the Chiefs Eagles Super Bowl this year, you may not want to watch next year because it'd be the same thing again. Right. So sorry, Lions fans, sorry, Bills fans. Like, I love the story. America would adore it, but I hate to tell you, it's your job just got a lot harder.
1,000%.
And so, best of luck to the Ravens. Best of luck to the Bills, best of luck to the Lions, to the Packers, to the Niners, making one last push here. Holy shit. I wouldn't want to be you right now because you've got a double tornado. You've got two.
Absolutely.
So, God bless.
No, that's definitely the thing about it. I mean, because, obviously to have a dynasty, like Sirianni said, name a quarterback who wins with shit. It just does not happen. So, you could talk about weapons and all this all you want, but at the end of the day, the most important position in the NFL is the quarterback position. Without a franchise quarterback, you will not win. You look at any dynasty, we look at the quarterbacks, and I'm just saying it's now time to start looking at Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles as those teams, as that team that really could potentially be an annual trip to the Super Bowl type of team.
Oh yeah, this is no fluke. Like, there's some teams you get there, like y'all back in 2017.
Yeah.
Wow, like that was really cool. Like, that was an awesome story. I'd only beat my Patriots,
Yeah.
Like, you take the bias out. I'm like, that's a pretty cool story, but
Eli Manning, both of his.
Like, there's. Yeah. Is it going to be Wentz? Is it going to be Foles? Like, you had that whole thing going on. Yeah. I don't think your roster was really good. I don't think it's what it is now.
Absolutely.
And you don't have everybody paid the way that you do now. Like, this is I don't usually say that about teams. I didn't say that about the Rams when they won. Like, there's some teams where I'm like, that was great. Good luck getting back there again.
Yeah.
The Eagles, I look at them and I look at y'all and I'm like, wow, there is actually some longevity to this. Like they could go back and back and back, and KC could go back and back and back. And so it's just, for the poor teams in their divisions, freaking Cowboys, Washington, God bless. The Chargers, the Broncos, they're gonna have good teams, but you gotta go up against these super teams. And
Got to get another coordinator again though this year. Kellen Moore.
that's the tough thing. It's getting poached.
Yeah.
It's guys getting poached, but you also hire well. So I'm not entirely worried about that. I mean, you had Steichen get picked, and you replace that well. You always good organizations hire well too. So I'm not really worried about that as much either. It's a. I also want to say too, quarterback is the most important position in the league, but something that KC and Philly have down are the lines.
That's with the trenches.
The trenches, and I said this to you leading up to the game. The Eagles, they build from the inside out. And the Chiefs do the same thing as well. Great linemen, offensive, defensive, both teams. It's amazing units, well coached. You don't see that with every team. There's teams. I think C.J. Stroud's a great quarterback. Not Jalen Hurts right now, but I think he's a great quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
With that shitty line, and so. You could have a really good quarterback, but if you don't have the beef up front,
right,
it's not really going to do much. But Philly has both, KC has both, and that's terrifying.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I'm in a spot now as a fan where I'm not really worried about other teams. It's just, well, are we going to beat the team or are we going to beat ourselves? I'm in that type of mode. But one team that I am very curious about what's going to happen is the San Francisco 49ers. They're going to get Ayuk back. Who knows what they're going to get in return for Debo? Brock Purdy's looking like he's about to get paid, but Christian McCaffrey's going to be healthy next season. New coordinator.
Did you see the video I made yesterday?
I didn't. What was the video?
Aaron Rodgers, quarterback of the Niners.
See, that would be interesting, but I mean, can you confidently move away from Purdy?
Yes, and I like Purdy, but it's a business decision. You're at a point right now. I look what the Giants did years ago, and they're at a point where they could have gotten a lot of value for Daniel Jones or somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Build capital, draft a quarterback, and build a foundation.
Right.
They're in a different position organizationally than the Niners are right now.
Yeah.
They were building something. The Niners are in their final years right now of having this window open. It's been open since 2019, and so you have to start paying guys now.
Right.
After this year, you got to worry about Kittle. Year after that, Fred Warner, C-Max getting old. Trent Williams getting old. Real foundational pieces getting older. And a guy like Brock Purdy is going to demand to be paid $50 to $60 million a year. I think he's a really good quarterback. I don't think he's worth that. But that's what the market's going to dictate. And so you fast forward to 2026, 2027, and you've got a really good quarterback that you're paying $60 million a year or $57 million a year to. You're in a situation like the Giants were just in, or like the Cowboys are in now, where you're overpaying a good, not great quarterback,
right?
And you're falling short time and time again, and you're in that same just vicious cycle. Bring in Aaron Rodgers, you alleviate that pain. You get your money's worth for Brock Purdy because somebody else out there will pick him up and pay him the big bucks. Right. I'm not concerned. There are plenty of teams out there that will right now, and so I'm not. If I'm San Fran, I look at that and I say, I've got 2 years left in my window. Aaron Rodgers has 2 years left in his window.
Yeah,
I think with a pretty good old line, they're middle of the pack, not bad, not great, but a really formidable receiving core and defense. I like Aaron Rodgers with that, and I think that could compete with y'all. But at the end of the day, I don't think there's really much that Detroit and San Fran and Green Bay can do to really get me to bat an eye from Philadelphia. Just because
I agree.
The biggest thing, I'm gonna make a video about this at some point too. But the biggest challenge ahead of Philly is the disease of me. I've never read the Pat Riley book, but the disease of me and complacency are the two biggest things I got to worry about now. That's what destroyed the Seahawks.
Yep.
Was the disease of me. Destroyed them. They were on top of the world. I mean, that was one of the Philly was the best best single season team I'd seen since the 2014 Seahawks with the Legion of Boom. A lot of similar elements. they weren't able to stick together because of internal dynamics and egos, guys stepping on each other's toes. Philly, all is great right now. Everything is great.
Top of the world, man. World
On
champs.
top of the world. But, start next season, then it's going to be how to keep everybody happy. How do you not let guys' egos intersect?
And
How
I
do
think
you let guys not make it more about themselves and the team?
I think that's a testament to Howie Roseman and how he does such a great job of making sure guys are paid, making sure he's ahead of the market. Because I mean, what do you have to be upset about now? You got your money, you got your contract. Just go play football. Because that's literally all. Whenever it comes to people being disgruntled, it's either a role thing or a win thing or a money thing. Like at this point, your roles, everybody's role is established. Everybody has they're comfortable. They're eating good. Like we're winning. What do you have to be upset about now at this point? So, I mean, I think having that alone is just a great foundation, and is really what's going to be able to make sure that this thing can keep going further and further and further and get multiple Super Bowl appearances.
The longevity is there. The foundation is there.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing to do at this point is if you're on the goal line, run the damn ball. Because that's what killed the last potential dynasty.
Yep.
So that was in your position in the season.
And the Eagles have a special play on that goal line that we absolutely do not have to worry about anything else. So I'm not worried about making the mistake that Pete Carroll made by not giving Marshawn that ball, because we'll just push the ball in.
They've got the tush push. Seattle never did. And exactly. So that's the secret sauce. That's like a Big Mac sauce right there. I see a comment from my buddy Jalen Brooks here too, saying he doesn't think Sirianni gets enough credit for keeping everyone selfless and connected. I have to agree.
Players coach.
I think that people, including myself, got so focused on grilling Sirianni that you don't realize. I mean, a lot of praise goes to Roseman and these players, and it's deserving. So, but I think we got to get past the Sirianni stigma at this point and admit that he did a pretty damn good job with what he had, because there's coaches out there that would have fumbled that.
Yeah, he did a fantastic job, because I sat there and watched the media try to tear down the team 9 weeks straight. We were 7-2, and we still had guys on media saying basically saying, can Jalen Hurts even play the quarterback position? And I'm sorry to bring up Jalen Hurts again, but I know that's where a lot of the criticism of the team stemmed from. So it has to be the main point. And it's like you have a team here that's 2-loss team, 7-0 since, or 5 straight wins since the bye week, and we're sitting here criticizing them whenever you got guys like Jared Goff throwing 5 interceptions in a game and still winning the game, and nobody bats an eye. And that I never understood that. But Sirianni has done a great job of like quieting the noise, making sure no outside distractions are getting internal. Anytime anything was popping off, media doing this, he did a great job of just keeping the guys centered, level, and just making sure that they kept their head forward, eyes forward on the main goal. And I agree. I mean, having a player coach having a coach that can connect with the guys is equally as important as having a guy who's just great with the X's and O's. It's like, great with the X's and O's, but are you keeping your players happy? And, that was a big reason why Miami never flourished with Fangio as their DC, because you had players saying, oh, he was too tough on them, like all that. So having that balance and making sure everybody is happy is such an important part in the NFL, because you got a lot of guys with a lot of egos. So yes, I fully agree. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not even just saying this. I was not a huge Sirianni criticizer. I did a pretty good amount after 2023, but at the end of the day, like I wasn't one that was like calling for his head. It was just like, you gotta go win or you gotta go, which I felt was fair after how 2023 ended, and he won. And
well, it was very like there's so many parallels to your season and Ohio State's. Like it was the same thing for Ryan Day.
Exactly.
With that roster, with the position he was in, it's like if you don't win with this, you don't win the division with this, you win a playoff game with this, you're out the door. High pressure cities, high pressure environments, Philly, Columbus, Ohio, a lot of demands from those respective fan bases, very passionate. And both guys delivered peak at the right times. And I think that one commonality too between both teams' journeys is that there was a certain point in time that led to the jump, that brought the team closer to each other than ever
Absolutely.
before. Ohio State's was the loss to Michigan, of course. That goes without saying.
Yep.
That's an instrumental part of the story. They were never the same after that. The point where the Eagles and Nick Sirianni gained my respect forever was when, like you said, the media was trying to create a shitstorm in mid-December over the whole Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown debacle, scuffle, dynamic, whatever name you want to attach to it. You were playing the Steelers that weekend, I remember.
Yep.
And everybody's, the Steelers are going to take advantage of this. Philly's going to play down. They're going to be disjointed. There's going to be tension. You kicked their ass. Like there was never a doubt, and that to me, because that is a point where there are some teams out there that could have gotten destroyed by that. You didn't, and that was a testament to the strength of your team. When you watch the game long enough, and you see teams go through stuff like that, some teams make it through and some teams not. It weighs a lot when you've got teams that do make it through and become even better. Especially when you've got the media. The Eagles are a team. I get it. I went to Alabama. The Eagles were one of those teams. Everybody's trying to take them apart because you're a good team. I mean, your brand is iconic. Love it or hate it. There's a lot of jealousy, a lot of hatred pointed towards those teams because of who they are. The whole other layer. And when you can face that and just continue to up your game, Ohio State's the same way. Everybody wants to see them lose for some reason.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
When you're one of those teams and you're facing that extra dimension, you're not only facing resistance on the field, you're facing it
everywhere.
Yeah. And so, it just says a lot when you can respond to adversity like that. And I think that this Philly team is built different for years to come.
Yeah. And to even further that point, just to kind of like, whenever you see reports like that, don't even feed into it, because Jalen Hurts is the godfather of AJ Brown's daughter.
Really? Okay, I didn't even know that.
Exactly. Most people don't even know that. Like what are we talking about here? Like, those guys are like, come on now.
They're tight.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
and so again, it's one of those things you gotta scoff at the media stuff sometimes, because you're trying to get clicks, trying to cause animosity, because where there's animosity, there's money to be made.
Yep.
For the media.
We live in an era where people like to rage bait.
Yeah. And I hate that. I don't like to give into that. That's what the era is all about. Yeah. We are an anti-rage bait channel, and so, you've got to really assess what the media does sometimes, what their tactics are, because there are sometimes like yes, a dynamic like what happened with the Seahawks was a real thing with the passing the ball on the goal lines, everyone. That was actually a really big thing.
Yeah,
but that was making a shitstorm out of nothing with Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown back in December. But y'all overcame, and I think that there is a lot of great things to be done for the Eagles in these years to come. Congrats to you, Mike James. Continue to bask in the glory and talk your shit, because you know what? Everybody hated you. Everybody was against you. Everybody was pushing against the Eagles' grain. And like I said, I know that well as an Alabama fan. So you have my vote of confidence. Go talk your shit this week, because it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing to do, because you won and they didn't. So
exactly.
Take it in, talk your shit. Yeah, Mike James, as always, it's great to have you on here.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. Like I said, I just had to come for one last victory lap versus, because we had that debate back when, and then now everything that I was saying is coming to fruition. So I couldn't let you off the hook easy, man. I had to come on here, show you why you were wrong, whether you still believe it or not. And at the end of the day, there's one team hoisting up that Lombardi, one guy who won Super Bowl MVP, the MVPs of all MVPs, Philadelphia Eagles and Jalen Hurts, man. So appreciate you having me.
You were steadfast on that point too. You always remained committed to it, and I've got respect for people when they do that, when they have a point and they stick to it, and then it comes to fruition. I really respect that, and I had to have you on to showcase that. It's a great thing. You always believed in the Eagles. I had my doubts, and you're right at the end of the day. And so when that happens, you deserve your seat on this channel. So you're always welcome on here to talk about your Eagles whenever you want. The seat at the table is always here.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. Who knows? Might be back next year hosting up another Lombardi. So,
well, I was going to say, now it's time to get back to the drawing board and get ready to do it again next year. Soak it in this week. Have that parade, grease the light poles, and then back to the drawing board to do it again next year. That's what KC does, and if you want to chase that, that's what you got to do.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see who that hires the OC, and we'll see what the team identity becomes next year. But I mean,
I'm
6 in the backfield, do the same thing again.
It's one of those things where you just can't overthink it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of teams that, like Baltimore, like Penn State, that have a lot and they overthink it sometimes.
Absolutely.
OC for Philly, don't overthink it. For that position, don't overthink it. Use what you have to its advantage. You got Saquon, you got AJ Brown, you got Jalen Hurts, you have an elite offensive line. Just use it. Really, it's that simple.
Exactly.
Well, my man, it was great having you on. You know what? You'll even get this out of me too. Fly, Eagles, fly. There you go.
That's what I like to hear, BG. That's what I like to hear, man.
You got it. Congratulations, brother, and bask in the glory because y'all earned it.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate it.
All right, my man. You have a good night. Peace out.
Yes, sir. You too.